Fintan, you're both very welcome. When you started out in rowing, did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you'd get to the stage that you're at now?
I suppose at that age, you're so naive that you don't even question it. So when I started with my brother Gary, my dad would have said to the two of us, in a couple of years' time, when you're a bit older, you can go to the Olympics. And we were like, oh yeah, we'll do that. I suppose in a way it made sense for us, because around that time, Eugene Coakley had just been the spare man for the Sydney Olympics in 2000. Joe, myself and Gary started in 2001. And then he was in the boat at the Athens Olympics in 2004, and Tim Harnedy was the spare man. And they were both from our club, and we would have seen them sometimes back there doing a bit of training and stuff. So, we kind of knew them a little bit. We knew the training that they had done, were coached by the same coaches and stuff. So I suppose when you're that young, you have a bit of naivety, which is good. And we were like, if we do what they do, we don't see any reason why we can't go on and try and emulate what they did. And I suppose fortunately it kind of worked out for us, and we learned a lot from them as well. And I think they'll admit that they made some mistakes along the way, which they kind of helped us out with and kind of fast-tracked us a bit. And then we tried to take that then and try and, just always refining the program that we have in Skibbereen, trying to make it better and improve it with all the guys that go to the national team over the years and kind of come back. And I think Dominic Casey was a fairly central character in all of that, which he was head coach in the rowing club for so long, and getting guys good enough to go onto the team, and they were feeding back to him, and he was feeding it down to the youngsters and getting them motivated and training hard and stuff.
Fintan, if you could go back in time to when you were younger and you were out in the water, what advice would you give yourself?
I was about 15, I think, when I properly started. But I don't think I'd have too much advice. I think, I don't think I changed much. I've had a pretty good progression and learned a lot along the way, both about rowing and about life in general, I reckon. So I think I'd still let myself kind of find my own way and my own path.
Watching you on the water earlier, it's very clear you love what you do. Is there ever a time when you don't relish getting out there?
Not really, no. I think it's always enjoyable to get out in the boat, especially when the weather's warming up a bit now coming into the summer, and there's some big races closing in on us pretty quick. But it's just so enjoyable with all the nature around us, the calmness, quietness of being out in the lake, and we're just able to work away and enjoy it all and do the thing we love. And it's just such a nice feeling when the boat's going well, which of course we have all of the time, every single stroke that we take. So it's never not enjoyable.
When you're out there, you talked about the nature, talk about that serenity. Here where we are, it's just so peaceful. You don't feel the weight of the former medals on your neck. You don't kind of let it all in. Is it the best way out there to relax while you're working?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we're really lucky here to have such a good facility, and it pretty much all to ourselves as well. Granted, it gets a bit windy now and then, but I think that prepares us well for the windy regattas as well. So, yeah, we're just extremely lucky to have the lake, and I guess to have grown up in Skibbereen as well. There's a similar setup down there in terms of a long stretch of water pretty much to ourselves. So yeah, it's been great.
Does the weather faze you? Because you can have windy days, you can have really hot days. I always feel sorry for you guys when it is warm. Does the weather have to be factored in?
I think we don't, factor it too much into the racing when the racing is actually happening, but we try and factor it into our training a lot during the year. So I think kind of naturally flat calm conditions, not too hot, not too cold, are the easiest to row. And I suppose fortunately we don't have too much of that here, and we get loads of the harder stuff to row in where it's windy, wet, cold, raining and stuff. So we get probably more of that than any other country in the world. So when the weather's anyway not perfect, we often kind of find that we're almost best prepared for it from all the crews. So we almost kind of relish a bit of adverse weather, just being in the country that we are.
How do you put up with winter training?
Oh, we don't do too much giving out, really. Like we said, I think we relish all conditions and never complain, and are pretty happy in anything.
When you're in the boat together, it's just the two of you, how much of it is verbal? How much of it is understood? How much of it is unspoken in the communication between you?
I think most of it is very non-verbal. Even in training, we'd have, say before we go out, we'd have a bit of a discussion, a plan, like what we're going to do and where we're going to do it, and the basic things like that. Sometimes we have a few minutes of rest between some of the intervals we're doing, or we stop to have a drink and we just discuss a few little bits on technical aspects that we think we can make some quick improvements on and focus on for the training sessions. And in racing, then it's almost entirely non-verbal. It's not quite telepathic, but I think the best way to describe it is that we've kind of, I suppose, done so many races, spent a lot of time together and talked about what we should do in different situations in races at various times and stuff, and kind of have the same ideas about how to get the most out of ourselves, that when we kind of, like, we can both kind of look around and assess the situation in the race, run it through the, I suppose, algorithm in our heads and arrive at the same conclusion without having to, like, communicate with each other. I think we can feel our own kind of momentum and rhythm as well in the boat, which helps.
What about when other crews do something different that's outside of your control? I mean, how do you manage that?
You know, I guess we can only sort of control what we're doing. It doesn't faze us too much whether other crews are doing something different. And a lot of the time, as Paul was saying, if they do something different, we generally kind of both clock it and arrive at the same conclusion anyway. So it's more about kind of getting the best out of ourselves over the race distance.
You have a big race coming up this summer. What impact does that have then on your training routine? Does it get a lot harder?
I don't think our training changes too much, kind of week to week and year on year, I suppose. Well, say in some of the earlier years, a few years out from the big race, sometimes we're a bit apart, doing our own study and working, and what would you be doing? But we'd be doing our kind of own training separately, but it would be similar. Whereas the big upcoming race later this summer, we've kind of spent the past almost 12 months at the training centre together full time, trying to get in the boat together as much as we can, and a few training camps in Spain over the winter where we can't always get out in the boat here because the weather is so bad. So mostly the type of work that we're doing is very similar, but we try and get a bit more of it done together in the boat rather than individually. But even still at the minute, we spend a bit of time on our own to work on our own individual technical factors as well. If
you spend all your time together, presumably you get on each other's nerves. I mean, you have to get on with each other, don't you?
Yeah. No, yeah, we do get along, and I think especially in previous years, some people might be surprised, like, by the amount of time we actually spend apart, working on our own kind of trying to improve in our own ways. Are
you open with each other if you think you can give constructive advice? Do you know what I mean? And that's when you're in a partnership like you guys are. Yeah. Is it okay for Paul to say, Fintan, do you know, why don't you try it this way? I mean, is that how it works?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we even probably look for that as well. Like I'd often ask Paul what he thinks of how the boat's going, or we have a lot of discussions about how we can optimize training and our technique and things like that. So I think it's pretty open discussion.
There's a third party we haven't really talked about yet, and you've mentioned it a good bit, the boat. How much of a factor is the boat in all of this? Because it sounds like the boat gets a bit of blame sometimes when things don't go right.
Yeah, I suppose it's always nice to blame the boat when things are not going well, which we do quite often. It's not a huge factor, to be honest. There are 2 or 3 different brands of boats that people can buy, and crews have had success in probably all of them. Kind of sampled a few of them over time and found that we're quite comfortable in the one we have at the minute. When we set it up the way we want it to be set up, it generally stays that way. Some of them we find are a bit more finicky, and so we're happy and satisfied with the one we have.
In case it's listening. Warm weather training coming up because you have a big race coming up this summer. When you're out, I mean, how much do you care about other teams? You know, a good manager always says, don't worry about how the other team plays, just worry about how you play. Is that how you deal with it? Or are you always having one eye on what your opponents could be doing?
Yeah, no, I think especially in a sport like rowing, you know, you're not going to be able to slow someone else down or affect anyone else's speed, really. So it is very much us being focused on ourselves and I guess how fast we can get in the time that's left. But you'd have an ear out and just to see what's going on in other countries. But yeah, it doesn't really affect us at all, to be honest.
So when you're not rowing, what do you guys do to relax? I mean, is it Netflix or what do you do, Paul?
I think I'm kind of too switched off most of the time, to be honest. I'd be trying to rouse myself up there a lot of the time. I don't watch much television and stuff, but in the evenings I do a bit of reading at home. Right,
Fintan, and more dramatic?
Oh God, I don't know if I should say, but no, I'm probably the same. Yeah, big into probably the usual things, you know, Netflix and a bit of cooking.
Outside of rowing, you guys lead incredibly busy lives. I mean, you've recently qualified as a doctor, Paul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How's that going?
It's not going at the minute until after the big event this summer, and I'll be back to work then after that, so I'm looking forward to that very much.
And you're still studying as far as I know, aren't you, Fintan?
Yeah, I'm just finishing up a master's next year in performance coaching, so that'll hopefully keep me busy after the summer events.
So we asked a lot of younger rowers, the up-and-coming people, the ones who are going to be here in 15 years' time in those seats, to send in questions for you. So we're going to begin, and they're tough now, they're tough. First one is from Aoife, who's 13, and she asked, how many times have you capsized? I'm going to ask you that one.
I probably couldn't put an exact number on it, but I'll say around 10, maybe 10 times. Yeah. It's quite difficult once you're in the swing of things. A bit easier in the single maybe, but yeah, it's not very common.
Okay, well he's 10. I mean, are you going to better that?
I'm at least 55, I think, the last time I counted. I stopped counting once I got to that number.
Annie, who's 12, asks, what's your favourite boat to row? Do you have a favourite boat?
That's a tough question. Do they mean type of?
Type of boat? Maybe an individual boat?
I like the yellow boats. The yellow boats, they're definitely my favourite. Yeah.
Is that a technical thing?
It's not technical, no. It's just the colour of them. They're good, well-built, solid boats.
Jack is 11 and he asks, what is your favourite food?
It's a difficult one. We can eat a lot because we're doing a lot of training, so would depend on the day, I'd say. Yeah, I couldn't answer. Sorry, Jack.
What you have today?
I had toast for breakfast, toast and Nutella. That's a staple, really. Then we've got some pasta for lunch. Pasta and rice are quite common, so let's go with that. Pasta or rice.
Lots of carbs.
Yeah,
lots of carbs.
All the carbs.
Killian, who's 14, has asked, what do you do outside of rowing? Well, you've admitted reading books. Is there anything else that floats your boat?
Yeah, I do a lot of reading, and on the side I take care of a lot of very important intellectual matters of national interest, of stuff of very high importance.
But you couldn't talk about them?
I can't talk about them, of course, but most evenings I'd be kept very busy, up late at night, doing that type of thing. High stress stuff as well.
And of course, because of all those court orders, you can't tell us that.
Exactly, yeah, unfortunately. But
Zoe is 10. She asks, do your legs hurt when you're rowing?
All the time, yeah. every day, they hurt.
He's always complaining to me about having sore legs.
Saoirse is 10, and she asks, what age were you when you started rowing? We know when you started. What age did you start?
I was 7 years old.
And what age were you before you got good, do you think?
I think I've been going 23 years now and I'm still not good, so I'm working on it, making slow improvements steadily, and I think that's the most important thing.
And here's a hard one that's going to put you on the spot. How many medals have you won?
Oh God, not that many. People are maybe surprised to hear that, but you actually do a good bit of losing in rowing, so before you start winning. So I wouldn't say too many. If I had to put a number on it, I couldn't put a number on it.
We'll see if we have a better answer here. Paul, how many medals have you won?
I think maybe 3 or 4 medals. But I think, like Fintan was saying, we've lost far more races than what we've won medals in. So I think people sometimes get too caught up in winning races and winning medals and stuff. And even, people say that we've been quite successful and still we've lost an awful amount of races over our careers. So I think the most important thing is to be doing something that you really enjoy and to make progress in that. And rather than kind of worrying too much about winning medals. And the longer you stay at it, the more you enjoy it, the longer you'll stay at it, the better you'll get, and eventually you'll kind of make progress towards winning medals if that's what you want.
Over the next few weeks and months, people are going to get fierce interested in rowing. Is that pressure going to get you a little bit, that everyone's looking at you? Not wishing to say it's a bad thing, because it's a good thing that people want to support you, but does that enter into your psychology at all?
I don't think that kind of pressure enters our psychology. We're very, very grateful for all the support that we receive, and it's nothing but positivity, and it's incredible like how much everyone gets behind the sport like rowing, and especially with the big event coming up later this summer. I think for us, we kind of got into rowing for our own reasons and wanted to be the best for ourselves and do the best that we can do, and it was never for us about trying to please other people or make other people happy and to meet other people's expectations. We were just kind of happy that we were doing the thing that we liked, and we're kind of making progress in the direction that we wanted to go, and that was and still is the most important thing for us.
Right now, with the big race coming up and a busy summer season, could you see yourselves doing it with anyone other than the man sitting next to you?
Oh, and not at the moment. We've spent so much time together and working on this combination that I think will, it'll be very difficult to,
You do agree, don't you?
We've done all the trials and stuff over the past number of years, and this is a combination that's been very successful, so it's hard not to go with that.
Have you any idea what will happen when this roller coaster ends that you guys have been on for the last while? Because you speak to anyone in sport and you're at the top of their game, and one day, the knee will give out or the elbow will give out or something will go. I mean, does that even enter your mind to help you enjoy what you're doing more?
A bit. I think especially this year, I've had 1 or 2 stints where I haven't been able to row, so it kind of does put into perspective that what we're doing, we're really lucky to be able to be doing it and to have done it for so long as well. So I think we're just really enjoying the few weeks we have left until the big event, and then we can sort of assess what happens from there.
My last question to you, and I'm asking West Cork men a very complicated question here. How confident are you?
Not at all. Not confident.
That's exactly the answer. Paul, Fintan, on behalf of everybody, the best of luck in the next few weeks, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.